Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Jenny and I'm a part of education team at Medit. Nice to meet everyone. And today we have Dr. Andrew IP for the first time joining with us. Hello, Doctor.
Hey.
Okay, thank you for being here, Doctor. So Andrew is a Sydney-based general dentist and most of his work is based on digital dentistry, especially with 3D printing work, right?
Yes, that's kind of like my field of expertise.
When did you start the digital dentistry?
Oh, it would have been quite a number of years ago, actually, but certainly before, the whole COVID pandemic. So, yeah,
Oh,
it's been quite a number of years, and actually, I've been 3D printing before then for even longer. So, actually, I was 3D printing as a hobby first before I
oh,
introduced it into my clinical practice. So, yeah, talk about taking work back home. I actually brought my hobbies into work.
oh,
So it's funny how life works.
hmm. Wow. Okay, so before getting started, I would like to briefly introduce about Dr. Andrew. IP. It's IP, right?
Yeah, I've in here, P for Peter. Yeah.
Oh, so long.
Very simple.
IP. IP is better.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the profile page of Dr. Andrew. So okay. He is highly qualified and experienced dental professional with an impressive educational background. He holds a Bachelor of Dental Surgery degree from the University of Adelaide, as well as multiple master's degree in orthodontics, implantology, dental surgery, and digital dentistry. A lot. Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. And currently, he's actively collaborating as a KOL for several digital dentistry related companies, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have showed us so many dental backgrounds. So could you
Mm.
tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an Australian dentist. I've been practicing for just over 10 years now.
Oh,
And I guess I got into digital dentistry kind of because, well, I was getting a bit sick of the traditional way of doing things. And actually, as I mentioned earlier, I was 3D printing as a hobby years before I even introduced it into my clinical practice, even before I had my first intraoral scanner in one of my practices. So
oh,
I was actually involved in, I guess, digital CAD CAM for quite some time, but just not in the dental environment. And then I guess one thing led to another. I started printing models and then splints and then surgical guides and now anything that you can more or less 3D print. I've done it at least once before. If not, I'm doing it routinely. So yeah, it's taken me all over the world. It's a very privileged position that I have found myself in, to be able to travel the world, spread my passion and enthusiasm for dental 3D printing and digital dentistry. So yeah, it's been an awesome journey, and it really is quite an exciting field to be involved in, and the fact that I have the opportunity to spread, my experience and knowledge, to other parts of the world, and educate other dentists and technicians on, new ways of doing things, has been really quite rewarding.
wow. We are so lucky that we have you today. Wow. Okay, so everyone must be so excited to attend the first lecture of yours.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it too. Yeah.
Okay. Shall we begin, Doctor?
Okay, so I'm Dr. Andrew Ip. Today we'll be talking about how to maximize your return on investment of your intraoral scanner with specifically 3D printing. So a bit about me. I'm a general dentist based in Sydney, Australia. These are the links to my socials, my website, my Instagram, and my YouTube channel. So all the videos that I'll play through today will be on my YouTube channel for free, so you can always refer to them at any point. And of course, this is a QR code. If you are interested in, looking and exploring what I have next in my calendar, my own individual courses, and what's going around with me, then of course you can scan that QR code, and it'll bring up a whole list of what's happening. So I have to thank Medit for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. But yes, a little bit about me. As I mentioned, I'm a Sydney-based general dentist. You can see a list of my qualifications. It's getting longer and longer, and yeah, I spend a lot of time furthering my study outside of your regular Bachelor of Dental surgery. I currently operate a number of 3D printers. So right now I'm using 3 or 4 resin 3D printers and 1 FDM printer, and I do have 1 dental ceramic printer. And I've actually operated more than 25 different 3D printers so far, and that number is obviously going to increase very soon. And I started off, 3D printing as a bit of a hobby. You can see in these images over on the right-hand side, I was printing models like this, figurines, toys, helmets for my cats, fun stuff like that. And nowadays, most of the 3D printing that I do is dental related. So on the bottom right-hand side, you can see these are Ceramco Crown Tech veneers that I've 3D printed. I do have a very basic online course with the Institute of Digital Dentistry, and I'm a guest writer for them too. And of course, as I mentioned before, I've got my own YouTube channel where I have a lot of playthrough tutorials, so you can always refer to them for free. And of course, my socials, Instagram, if you want to follow me on Facebook as well, just search up Andrew Ip. The image or the profile photo will be of my cat Max with his Iron Man helmet. So I like to start any course or lesson with a bit of a thanks to the people who have made me be the person that I am today. These are actually my parents. They're both general dentists, but they really don't want to have too much to do with digital dentistry, which is funny. But I like this photo because it's one of the very few photos that I have of all of us 3 working together. So it's a nice photo. It's quite old, and yeah, I do keep this photo very close to my heart. And of course, where I started is all the fun stuff. Okay, not the dental stuff. So here you can see some helmets. This is a helmet for one of my cats, Minnie. The bulk of the helmet's printed in FDM in a multicolor print. And the visor is actually printed out of Keysprint Hard Clear using the Asiga UV Max, using their ultra gloss trays. A bit of 3D printed artwork in the center, and that's my other cat Max on the right hand side. And of course, this is basically where I'm going. This is what I'm doing now on a very, very regular basis, if not daily. These are some 3D printed implant provisionals. The abutment is actually printed out of a Keysprint Hard Clear material using, once again, the Asiga Max UV, and I'm using their ultra gloss trays so that there's very, very minimal post-processing. And I've had my designer actually design a facial veneer for the aesthetics, of course. And this is all bonded together and all inserted direct to the fixture. Of course, where would I be without my lovely wife and my 2 cats? The image on the left-hand side is actually my wife, and it's actually a 3D print. So that's a multicolored 3D print, and then when you shine it against the light, you can obviously see different colors. And she's holding Minnie in that photo. And in the center, that's Max. He's very adventurous, very curious, and very good with humans. He's been absolutely fantastic. And of course, the image on the right-hand side, that's my very caring and lovely wife, Casey. She's definitely the more people person out of us 2. I'm actually very quiet, but she's always very bubbly, and she gets along with a lot of people, unlike me. And of course, this is the tally of the 3D printers that I've either owned or used significantly or for a substantial amount of time. So yeah, that list is always being updated. So what is actually possible with 3D printing? Okay. Oh, sorry. Let's run through this video. Yeah, so here we are, we're designing a digital collar, using Medit design actually. So once again, one way to get a bit of investment from your intraoral scanner is the software that comes with it. And I'm a big fan of Medit software because number one, it's free, and number two, it's actually really quite powerful. So here I am using Medit design to shape these pre-designed healing collars. Now I'm using an implant system called the Trimatrix system, and it's got a very unique connection where the restorations or abutments or your healing collars, they're all screwed directly to the fixture. So it's a very, very unique connection. Anyway, that aside, they do provide a whole list or library of 3D printed healing collars, which you can either mill or print yourself. So you don't need to buy, individual healing abutments or collars. You just basically print or mill them out yourself, which is fantastic. Not so fantastic for them as an implant company because they're not making any money on componentry, but of course, very good for the end user. And as a result here, I'm actually shaping these files myself digitally using, once again, free software, Medit Design. So here I'm actually printing them out of on X on the Sprint Ray Pro 95, Pro S95. And yeah, you can print them all in one go, a whole row of these, like I'm showing here right now. It's just, whether you print 1 or you print 12, it's the same amount of time. And once again, it's just one way to make use of, the software that you have access to. Here, that's what they look like when they're freshly printed. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wash them and then we're going to cure them. So here they are in the Pro Cure 2, which is going to make sure that, when they're fully cured, they're going to be safe for our patients. Especially, this is really important when we're dealing with dental implantology because they're going to be in the mouth, potentially exposed to the bloodstream. Okay, that's what they look like. As an alternative, I'm showing you how to show you the workflow on 3D printing green slate zirconia, which is not something that you see every day. So here I'm using the Aeon Zipro D, which is one of the very few dental ceramic 3D printers. So here you are, this is the process. It's quite slow, quite messy, but the advantage is, once again, you can print a whole lot of these in one go. And as you know, zirconia is very friendly on the soft tissue. That's fully polished. You can see, how polished that gets. So simple case, missing 4/6, lower right first molar, planning on the Blue Sky plan. Once again, using CBCT DICOM file and an intraoral scan taken with, I think I was using the Medit i700 for this particular intraoral scan. So once again, we're using the intraoral scanner and the software associated with it to create something. Okay, so it's not just about the scanning that's saving you time, but you're also introducing new services, new applications to what you can provide in your general practices. So yeah, that's basically what it looks like on the day of insertion. And then, of course, this is the results. Before and after. You can see, very minimal work because this is all pre-made, but basically we can get some nice soft tissue profiling with a semi-customized healing abutment. And of course, this is another example. This is actually my aunt, and I once again 3D printed these healing collars, and you can see the shape of the soft tissue. Right. Wow. First questions first. Why get into dental 3D printing? I always answer this question with 4 criteria. First of all, we're always trying to cut costs without sacrificing quality, and that's generally what 3D printing can provide. We can, number 2, provide whole different ranges of services, products that we previously weren't able to, and that's fantastic. We're always looking to get the edge in our market. I work in Sydney; it's a very competitive market, so I'm always looking at ways to do something different compared to the crowd per se. Saving time, we can always use the example of printing a model versus taking a physical impression and pouring that up. When we take a physical impression, alginate, let's say, take an impression, hopefully without the patient gagging and making a mess on your floor, and then someone has to pour that up. Someone has to physically be there to pour it up. And then, we have to wait for the stone to set, take it out. Hopefully there's no bubbles or chips or cracks on where you need, good replication of the features. And there you go. That's quite a long process, quite a laborious process. And the thing is, that's quite a hands-on process. Someone actually has to be physically there to pour up the model. It's quite different when you do this all digitally. So you can take an intraoral scan in less than 2 minutes, and then you can prepare that scan to be 3D printed once again in less than 2 minutes sometimes, and then send that off to the 3D printer. It's all usually 3D printed in modern dental 3D printers in less than 45 minutes, and then that's it. It's no mess, no bubbles, no cracks, no chips, no risk of significant distortion. It's a very clean way of doing things, and it's very fast too. And the great thing is that, while the 3D printer is working, you and your staff have, time to do other things. You don't need to baby or supervise a 3D printer. It'll just do the work by itself. And of course, finally, I'm a bit biased, but I enjoy 3D printing, so I like to, when you try to get into something like this, especially with 3D printing, you want to make it an enjoyable process, so that not only do you and your staff enjoy it, it's a bit of fun. You can not just print dental things, there's a whole range of things that you can 3D print. And of course, with any investment, whether it's hardware, software, products, there's always 3 criteria: desirability, feasibility, and profitability. I think most of you listening here are private practitioners, private technicians, and at the end of the day, we have to make some sort of profit. If we cannot look after ourselves, we cannot look after our patients. That's really the brutal reality of our industry and our situation. So when we talk about profitability, can we make a profit out of investing in new technology, or is it going to be causing us a loss? That's very important. What are the ongoing costs with intraoral scanners, or any hardware that I invest in, and software as well. I prefer not to have a subscription-based purchase model, because that's an ongoing cost. Whereas with Medit, they have a lot of free software, so I use a lot of their software in my own 3D printing and design courses, and it's great for beginners because they don't need to invest in something per se besides their time. So yes, it's really, really important whether the money makes sense, essentially. Of course, with desirability, do you and your staff actually want to use it? Is it fun to use, enjoyable to use? Do you need certain features like same-day dentistry? So is speed an issue? In my opinion, speed is always an issue. Will it provide me certain functions that I can, where my patients can benefit from it? That's all really, really important. And of course, feasibility. Do you have enough space to introduce 3D printing in your practice? In Sydney, real estate is very expensive. It's very hard to get big spaces. So often you may want to invest in a more expensive setup, but you're future-proofing yourself. You're not necessarily getting into 3D printing. And after a few months, you want to expand on your scope, and then you find out that the system that you have is insufficient. Not only physically feasible, but also your time. There are some practices where the practitioners are all under the pump. It's really a very, very busy practice. Do you have the time to learn all of this? Do you have the time and energy to dedicate yourself to learn this properly? Of course, once you have these 3 criteria, you'll have this sweet spot right down in the center. Of course, this is a table. This is just a rough guide based on some rough pricing in US dollars, how much these 3D printed applications can cost. So you can take a photo of this or screenshot. I've got some study models, occlusal splints, surgical guides, provisional or definitive crowns, and indirect bonding trays. So you can see in terms of a material cost, the 3D printing is very, very valuable. And you can also look at that list, and that's a whole range of different applications that often the one 3D printer can handle. So it's not like often with chairside mills, you're just milling restorations because you can only mill blocks. With 3D printers, there's a whole range of applications that you can create. And where the intraoral scanner comes, really the intraoral scanner is actually your gateway to digital dentistry, and often you can't really get into digital dentistry without an intraoral scanner. Specifically in dental practices or dental offices, in labs you will need some sort of lab scanner, I guess. And then, with intraoral scanners, you have a whole different range of options, wireless, wired, and, with Medit, they have a whole range of options based on your budget. If you want to go all out, they just announced the Medit i900, medium to high range, you're talking about the Medit i700. And then with your low to medium budget, you've got your Medit i600. All fantastic machines, all the same software as well. Whether you get the i600 or the i900, you're still using Medit Link. You still have access to the Splints app. You still have access to Medit ClinicCab. It's fantastic. But we're not talking about scanners, all right? What else do you need to invest in, right? Software. You do need to invest in designing software, depending on what you want to make. And then, of course, printing software, depending on which printer you want to use. And then with software, are updates included? Are they free? If not, do you have to pay for your updates? Is it subscription-based? And as I mentioned before, I use a lot of Medit software because it's free, and I love free stuff, and who doesn't? And it works seamlessly with Medit scanners. Now, you don't need to have a Medit scanner to use Medit software, but I find that the transition is much easier. You're not wasting time importing, exporting, all of that stuff. And of course, if you don't want to do your own design, you have to make that decision whether you're going to outsource your design or you're going to design it in-house. Really up to you. It depends on the type of practice that you run. If you're a very busy practice, you just want to worry about the manufacturing, the CAM, then okay, just get a 3D printer. That's it. Away you go. Whereas if you want to have more control over everything and save a bit more money, then of course doing it in-house is always a great option. And with these days, a lot of the software out there, not just including Medit, it's very easy. It's quite affordable as well, and it's something that you can delegate for certain tasks. So what's out there? Whole list of different options out there. ExoCAD. Everyone knows ExoCAD. If you're in a CEREC or Dentsply specific practice, in lab, it's quite, of course, well known. Got 3Shape, Clinics, Blue Sky Bio, DentBird Solutions does AI crowns, Blender for dental, and of course Medit. So there's a lot of options out there in the market, and it can be quite confusing. Of course, this is a table. Once again, just a quick little table to show you really how different programs have different strengths and weaknesses as well. For example, 3Shape and ExoCAD, they're very, very, very expensive, but very comprehensive. They can do a whole range of things. Whereas something like the Medit apps, like Medit Splints, Medit ClinicCAD, it's free to use. You just basically install it, register for an account. All upgrades are included, but you have reduced number of applications that you can do. And yes, software is always going to be important. This is a quick video just to show you, how far we've come in actually not really a lot of time. I'm actually using a mesh mixer here to prepare an intraoral scan. And because when you get an intraoral scan, it's not ready yet. Yeah, it's not ready yet. So oops, just some issues with the audio. But yes, you can see, you know, I'm just trimming the borders. Sorry about that. Apologies. There we go. Let's start again. Alright, yes, I was just saying, we're going to be using, you know, Mesh Mixer here, and you think that this, by watching this, you think that this would have been, you know, quite a number of years ago, but the reality is that the technology has improved so quickly in such a short amount of time. You know, this is when we used to start 3D printing and preparing intraoral scans to be 3D print ready. You know, this is the program that we use. It was free. It was not designed for dentists, but you know, it did a pretty good job of editing digital files. So here I'm kind of getting rid of some excess tissue in my intraoral scan, because you know, we wanted a nice, I guess, trimmed model. Just like if we're cropping an image, we want to focus on what we want to have centered in a photo. Exactly the same when we're preparing a digital model to be 3D print ready. We have all of this excess noise, and we want to get rid of that, and that's basically what we're doing here. Here I'm getting rid of some of these faults in my intraoral scan. And you know, nowadays it's all handled for you by the software automatically. So this is still not 3D print ready, and right now I think we're basically making it into a solid object, because when you take an intraoral scan, be it with a Medit intraoral scanner or any other scanner that you use, it's not 3D print ready. It's just basically pixels in 3D space. So this is looking a lot more like something that you can 3D print. You know, this is definitely, theoretically, you could 3D print this, but that's going to be a long print, it's a tall print, and it's going to be an expensive print as well, because you've got lots of resin that's required to print this. So we want to hollow this model, and we're going to want to make this model a lot shorter, and that's basically what we're doing next. I think at this point of the recording I actually kind of forget what I'm doing, because it's been so long since I've used Mesh Mixer. And yeah, we're hollowing that model right now. And now we're going to trim that model, so it's going to be a faster print, and we just get, you know, all the details that we want rather than everything else. Yeah, so that's the other side. There we go. And then the funny thing is that, you know, maybe one in 3 or 1 in 4 times you do this, and then you know, the computer would crash, and then you'd start from all over again. Now, this is compared to Medit Model Builder. Nowadays, software is very good. It'll actually detect kind of relatively predictably, you know, what you actually want in your model. If you want to edit it, you can. Otherwise, you don't need to. I'm not even speeding this up. I think this is actually real time. So you can, here I'm printing it hollow. So with drainage holes, so very easy now. Bevel margins, so you can clip those models off the print bed a lot easier. If you want articulation, you can. If you want to label your models, you can. And also notice here, we're actually preparing upper and lower scans at the same time. So a lot faster these days. And you know, that's all ready to go. So you can see, you know, how your introducing 3D printing can really you know, fix a lot of issues or improve a lot of workflow problems that you have compared to the analog sense. I would highly recommend, if you're getting into 3D printing and any sort of digital design, that you should get a good PC. You know, a good processor, lots of RAM, and then, you know, as the graphics card, get basically a gaming laptop. And what I generally recommend is that, you know, most of these manufacturers for software and hardware, they'd have a list of recommended specs. You know, copy that list, show it to your IT guy, and ask your IT guy to beat that. So that's really what I would recommend, because if you get a good PC, you're going to make your life a lot easier. You're not going to be waiting and waiting and waiting for things to load and process. It's just going to be, a lot more seamless for you. I see a lot of the mistake that I see a lot of dentists do is they, spend a lot of money on hardware, software, and they cheap out on the PC. That's probably one of the worst things that you can do. All right. Right. So the fun stuff that you can 3D print, whole range of things. Models, splints, surgical guides. Down here on the bottom right hand side, we've got indirect bonding trays. On the bottom left hand side, we've got a 3D printed crown lay. All right, that's actually one of my dental assistants. And then some healing collars, bridges, and dentures. So a whole range of things that we can actually 3D print. So models, your bread and butter of digital dentistry and dental 3D printing. That's basically your 3D printed models, and models are such a broad topic. There's a whole range of things that you can do. So your crown and bridge and die models, orthodontic study models, wax ups, models, working models for retainers or mouth guards or in-house aligners. A whole range of things that you can do with 3D printing. And once again, that all starts from your intraoral scanner, because your intraoral scanner allows you to, at the end of the day, it will give you a file that you can use to prepare to 3D print. For splits, you've got a couple of good options in terms of materials. Keysprint Soft is very popular. Nightguard Flex is also popular if you're using a sprint ray printer, which I do. In fact, I have a couple. You would design in the Medit Splints app or Exocad 3Shape. Most of my splints are designed on the Medit Splints app because it's so easy, and once again, it's free. I use a leaf gauge to take an open bite record. And then you really want to have at minimum, 1.5 to 2 millimeters thickness. And if they do break, they will break at your second molar regions where you don't have that thickness. So yeah, just be careful with those. Once you do have that thickness, that adequate thickness, generally they will last quite a long time. And the advantage of these materials is that they can soften a little bit in warmish water. So, if you find, or if the patient finds that it's a little bit tight, then they can soak it in some warmish water. It'll soften up a little bit, and then they can insert the splint with a little bit more ease. All right, so with splints, very easy with the Medit Splint app. So this is, taken in an open bite fashion. It will show you how much clearance you have, and then you basically choose your inner settings, your offset, and how retentive you want your inner surface to be. You would basically choose your margins or select your margins. I like to have about 50% coverage on the facial surfaces and 100% on the palatal surfaces, but really it's up to you. And this is just a straightforward Michigan splint. So you can see, very straightforward. What I really like about the Medit Splint app is that it's so nice and bright. It's really clear and easy on the eyes. A lot of other software options out there. I'm not going to name names, but very powerful. But really, the user interface is not easy at all. And then, of course, a bit of loading. We're going to, of course, want to have a nice smooth surface externally. That's what the splint looks like. And I like to have, contact posteriorly, anteriorly. So this is basically what I'm doing. I'm actually, deliberately causing intrusions with the opposing teeth. So I'm actually overbuilding the contacts. But that's okay, because we're going to get rid of them in the click of a button in a second. Yeah, basically overbuilding the occlusal contacts. And then in a sec, we'll basically clear off those interferences right now. So just like that, magic trick, and yeah, I'm smoothing it digitally. You don't need to, you can just basically print it and polish it off if you so wish. But yeah, that's basically it. If you want to, label your splint, you can. I don't, but that's just personal preference. here I'm printing them on the Pro 95S out of Night Guard Flex, I believe. So just basically drag it in there. Sprint Ray recently updated their heavy support settings for splints, so now that's the splint setting that I use these days rather than the one that I'm showing in this video, because yeah, you basically print a splint, it'll come up with maybe 5 to 7 heavy supports, which you just basically clip off and you don't touch the rest of the splint. So there's much less post processing involved nowadays. But yeah, I mean, this will 3D print. If you want to change the orientation, you can. What I really like about Sprint Ray is that their software is very much geared towards clinicians, so it's very easy to use. Yeah, so that's up to you. But if you want to add more supports, you can, as I'm doing so in this video. You don't need to, but it's just for to show you guys the entire workflow. Of course, you don't need to get a Sprint Ray system. You know, pretty much any dental 3D printer out there will be able to handle splints. That's what it looks like when it's being 3D printed. That's freshly printed. And then you basically have to wash that off because it's all sticky and covered in excess resin. Very easy in the Sprint Ray system, just basically drop the whole thing in the Pro Wash and away you go. And then finally I'm curing it in the Pro Cure too. And I think it's going to take about 8 or 9 minutes. Yeah, 8 minutes. And then after this, you'll need to polish it and or glaze it. Up to you. I generally these days just polish it, but there are some users out there who will spend a lot of time glazing it. It's really a personal preference, but very minimal occlusal adjustments required because I've taken that bite in an open fashion. Of course, you can actually use Medit software for 3D printing restorations. Once again, we're leveraging the Intraoral scanner to do other things. Okay, and that is how ultimately you'll get your return on investment for any Intraoral scanner. You're using that scanner to create something. So, of course, with 3D printed restorations, they're very cheap to make, very fast, especially if you're printing multiple units, because there's no firing stage, so you don't need to chuck these in an oven. You can print them all in one go, in one print. It's the same amount of time. Whereas if you're milling, let's say 5 crowns, that's quite a long process. You don't get any of this chipping or fracturing at the margins with thin surfaces. Printing is very friendly when it comes to that. Now, these new definitive 3D printed restorations are quite versatile as well. You can print pretty much any single unit restoration, crown, inlay, onlay, veneer, crown lay, von lay, whatever you call it. It seems like every week there's a new name. The good thing about these is that they're actually repairable, most of them at least, because they're actually mainly some sort of hybrid composite and ceramic, and you can actually bond to the composite component of it. And yeah, these days the modern 3D printed restorations are all very opaque, very antagonist friendly, so they won't cause wear on adjacent teeth or opposing teeth. So there are some advantages to 3D printed restorations. Of course, this is an example. This is actually done in the same appointment, not same day, not in 24 hours, not in 48 hours, not in 2 weeks. I'm talking within 50 to 60 minutes. We've got an old leaking restoration here. We've removed it, taken an intraoral scan. I've designed this onlay using Medit CliniCAD. We've printed it out and we've cemented it using some sort of light-cured resin cement. Shade's not perfect, but you know what? It's worked. As I said, the whole process from start to finish, from the point the patient walked into my room to the point where the patient left my room was about 60 minutes. And then as an alternative to injection molded composites, for anyone who's done injection molding with flowable composite, anyone would know that that's quite a tedious process. It's not fun. It's quite an expensive process as well. Flowable composites are very, very pricey. And then you have to factor in the clear trays that you have to make. You ideally should be making 2 of them. So once again, it adds to your total cost, and there's a lot of adjustment and polishing involved. These days with 3D printed veneers, you can print them very thin. 200, 300 microns, very easy. And yeah, basically minimal prep. This patient came in. We did some very minor prep on upper canine to canine. Quick chairside mock-up, once again using Medit Clinic CAD, done while the patient was there. We 3D printed the temporary veneers while the patient once again was there. That print took about 8 to 9 minutes on the SprintRay Pro 55S using the crown kit and Onyx Tough 2. These are the temporary veneers in the middle. They're just seated there. Spot etched and bonded temporarily, and then I can remove those sprues or supports very easily. In the meantime, I've had my designer design the definitive veneers. You can see in the center, and that's being designed in ExoCAD. We're designing it. We're printing them out of Onyx Tough 2 Hollywood White because my patient has requested the whitest possible shade. Much to my dismay, but that's what she wants. So if white is what she wants, that is what she gets. So we printed them out in Hollywood White, and that's the final result. Of course, once again, using free software, we can do things like this. So this is, once again, a way that 3D printing can be used in your own dental practices. We're once again using an intraoral scan. I have 3 Medit scanners in my offices, and yeah, we've got a basic crown preparation here, and we're going to design essentially a crown for this discolored upper right lateral incisor, so tooth 1, 2. So we're spending a bit of time shaping the crown. Of course, you don't necessarily need to do that. You can spend as little or as much time as you want. And that's the beauty about digital dentistry. It's not an all or nothing proposition. Often it comes in shades of grey. You can do as little or as much as you want. And either way, you will still get some sort of return on your investment. Really, I'm quite comfortable using the software, so of course I spend quite a lot of time in front of a screen, but for other users you may find that I just want to print something out and I'll adjust it chairside, and that may be faster for you, and that is absolutely fine. That's no problem whatsoever. So yeah, this is what the crown looks like. We're going to do some manual adjustments or editing to make it look a little bit nicer. Okay, so that's basically what I'm doing here. And once again, as I said, you don't necessarily need to go through this whole process. You can just simply print it out and adjust it as per what you would like outside the mouth. But that's definitely looking a little bit more acceptable. Yeah, very, very easy. Once again, Medit Clinic CAD or any Medit software is free for anyone to use, so I highly recommend that even if you don't have a Medit scanner, go check it out, use it. Trust me, I think you're gonna enjoy it. Right? And really, you don't have anything to lose besides a bit of your time. So that's your final crown design. I'm going to be actually printing this on the Sega Max UV, one of my favorite 3D printers. It's just so reliable, built to last a decade. Yeah, great unit. And I'm going to be printing these out of rodent sculpture, which is resin that has at least 50% ceramic filler in it, and it's been cleared for definitive use in many parts of the world. Bit of a pro tip. Print multiple copies. When you're first starting with 3D printing, print more than one. The reason I say that is the material cost is actually quite low per unit. But what is actually more expensive is your time. So if you happen to, lose one of these crowns, you're polishing it, and then it just flings out somewhere to the corner of the room, you can't find it, that's a very stressful situation to be in. You could just basically 3D print a number of copies, and just in case something happens, you've got a spare to work with. Alright, there we go, printing on the single XUV. That's what it looks like freshly printed. We're going to clean these off. Now with these restorative resins, you don't want to completely immerse them in alcohol, so this is why I've actually designed a shaker to be able to be held in one hand to shake these clean. Of course, you can just physically manually clean them with a micro brush, and often that is faster. So curing in the auto flash, and then basically this is not almost the results. Yeah, it's a final polished intraoral. So definitely an improvement, not perfect, but as you can see, it's something that you can provide to your patients. Alright, and temporary bridges. Okay, this is a bit more of an advanced video, but just to show you an idea, if you have a pre-existing wax up or a pre-op scan of the patients. This patient here was replacing a number of crowns, basically having a long span bridge, because she did try implant treatments and that failed. So we're going for a longer span bridge essentially. So we're using once again the Medit ClinicCAD app to basically have or design a chairside multi-unit temporary bridge. So this was actually done. This is actually my actual recording while the patient was sitting in the chair. So yeah, basically here I'm nominating the teeth to separately. Because it's temporary, I really didn't need to spend that much time, but I'm a creature of habit. Basically identifying each individual tooth based off the pre-op scan that I had. Yeah, this is the prep scan. Alright, does a relatively good. The AI really does quite a decent job of detecting the margins, but as I said, this is a temporary thing, so we're not going to pay too much attention to this. Then they're going to basically merge your pre-op situation with your prep situation. Not quite perfect, but that's okay. We can change that and edit that to how we want it to be. Which is basically what we're doing right now, using these manual tools. Just basically smoothing it, and then I think we'll add some more material. There we go. And then we can, once again, you can spend as much time or as little time as possible, with this. Now you could just 3D print this, and because it's just a temporary, you could just, seat it in and trim as required. Or if it's, for me, it's I enjoy software, I enjoy using it, so that's why I'm doing quite a lot of it in the software. But yes, this is all free for anyone to use, so yeah, give it a shot. As I said, where 3D printing really excels is when you're 3D printing multiple units at the same time, which is a case like this, where we've basically got a temporary bridge, basically about 5 units, which we're going to print at the same time. Because to print 5 units is the same time as it would take to print 1. Yeah, I'm just basically smoothing that just the surfaces, making it look a little bit nicer, but honestly it's not terribly critical at this stage. Of course, if you're designing something a bit more definitive, then of course you should be spending a bit more time, but really you don't need to. Alright. Once again, printing on the SprintRay Pro 55S using the crown kit. And I think I'm printing this out of Bago. Shade is not right, that's fine. As I said, this is just a temporary thing. And this is a snap-on smile. Once again, another way that you can think of getting a bit of value with your intraoral scans. So we're actually designing with the Medit ClinicCAD software what we call a snap-on smile type of appliance. And the trick here is actually to extend your palatal margins a bit longer and deeper, because if you end them too high up, like towards incisal edges, the software is not quite so smart. It gets a bit confused. We're editing the position of the pointed teeth as per required. Next, and then you'll get something like this. And then you can, once again, use these very simple sculpting tools to edit them as much as you want. And it's not going to be perfect, but as I said, this is just a demonstration to show you what is indeed possible with your software. The software that you get for free and bundled up with your intraoral scanner. And as I said before, you don't need to use a Medit's intraoral scanner to use this software, but for me it's nice because everything's in the one platform. Bit more sculpting for me, just to make it look a little bit more nice. I probably could have made these a little bit less bulky, but as I said, this is just for a demonstration purpose, so just to give the patient an idea what we can do digitally and what we can do for her mouth. And if these palatal sections bother you, once again, 3D print them and adjust them chair side. That's probably easier than spending a lot of time on the software trying to trim things. Okay, printing out of Onyx Tough 2 on the crown kit. That's what they look freshly printed in about 10 minutes. And I'm going to characterize them a little bit in a sec. Like so. Right? So you can make them look really nice. You can actually give them to the patient to show whoever's part of the decision-making process. Yeah, really nice way of getting more value out of your 3D printer and your intraoral scanner. And then finally, we have 3D freeform. So this is a technique that was actually invented by an American dentist, Caroline Cattell, and it's just to show you an idea. Some clinicians, they still prefer to use composite anteriorly because of the looks. It's still very much more aesthetic material compared to our 3D printed crowns and veneers, which tend to be a bit more opaque. So in this case, I'm actually creating a palatal shell, which is actually bonded to the tooth. Now this patient had a fall, a nasty fall, and had broken this tooth. So we were doing endodontic therapy, root canal therapy, in between all of this. So while this was all happening, we were designing a palatal shell, which would be bonded directly to the tooth, and we'd keep it there as well. So we're not removing it. It's just going to act as a palatal shell, as a scaffold where we can lay out our composites, rather than creating that palatal shell manually by hand. Once again, it's just a way that 3D printing can give you, it's just food for thoughts. Your 3D printer is really just there as something that brings your imagination to life. And so I do have to credit Dr. Cattell for creating this particular technique. I think it's a really novel and nice way in certain situations to do something good for the patient. You have that palatal shell that often you're struggling to make on patients. So if you could 3D print one and cement one, it's just a little bit easier. You're spending less time in the mouth, and it's actually probably anatomically more appropriate as well, and more accurate, rather than using some sort of clear matrix or strip to hopefully create some sort of anatomically correct palatal surface. Because this is all done digitally, so it's very straightforward. And then that's more or less what you want. Once again, as I said, it's a palatal shell, so we have to allow some space for us to apply our composite freehand. Yeah, so that's basically what it looks like. And here, I think in this situation, I should print it twice across a number of different 3D printers, just to show you that, you know, not just one printer can do this. You can use there are many 3D printers which are capable of doing all of this. So here, I'm going to be using the Hagear's Ultracraft chairside, and I'm printing it out of their LT crown. And this is the nesting process. Choosing different settings, orientation, using a mini build plate, so it's going to take less time to print. We're going to drag our file into the cloud-based software, and then away we go. Alright, and then we're going to add some supports. Alright, some supporting facing downwards. And that's also another trick with anterior restorations. We really want to have the incisal edge down, maybe angle it a little bit with the supports touching the palatal surface rather than your labial surface or facial surface. That should print, but I think in this situation I add some more supports, or maybe I add just for luck. Alright, but I mean that will definitely print. They're very small pieces to print. So that's basically what it looks like. These days I print at 100 microns and half the time. I'm also printing the same thing out of Crown-Tech on the Nexa 3D, which is a nice, good value 3D printer. Once again, incisal edge towards the build platform. We're going to add our supports, changing the support settings a little bit. So once again, that will print, but I think I add a couple of supports here and there. Oh yes, and yes, printing a spare just for luck, as you never know. Right, so that's looking good. And we'll go ahead and print this. Great, and that's what they look like printed. That's what it looks like on a dental model. That's you can see the fit is good. You can polish the palatal surface even before seating it in, so you're not wasting time in the patient's mouth. And then you can see that space that we have where we can just focus on layering our composites. Air abrasion to increase adhesion. We're cementing out of Panavia V5 Clear. And then we did remove the cement afterwards. And of course, this is the final result. Not perfect. My handiwork with composites intraoral is not great. I'm sure there are plenty of other guys who do a lot of a better job than me, but it's just to show you what 3D printers can provide to your practice. So, in summary, why get into in-house CAD/CAM? Where can you get value from your intraoral scanner and a 3D printer? These are the reasons. Number one, it saves costs. It saves your time, and the good thing about doing everything in-house is that you can actually quality control very well. You have, you get the choice to use what materials you want. If anything does happen, generally you'll have a good idea of what mistakes you've made, and you can rectify that a lot easier. You can actually reduce your chairside time. Once again, like with 3D freeform, you're not wasting time building up that palatal scaffold. That's all made outside of the mouth, so there's less time with the patient in the chair. And of course, a lot of these tasks, like simple crown design, designing a splint, preparing a model, that's all stuff that you can teach auxiliary staff and supporting staff. And 3D printing, whole range of applications, a lot of applications. So thank you for listening today. I hope you got a lot out of this webinar. But if you do want to reach out, I've got that QR code there. But there's my website, my Facebook and Instagram details, a link to my YouTube channel as well. So hope you got a bit out of this webinar. And yeah, don't be shy. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask and reach out to me whenever you can. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for sharing all your tips with us, Dr. Andrew. So let's move on to Q&A sessions.
Yeah, looking forward to the questions.
Okay, so today we have 4 questions. So I'll start with the first one.
Yep.
Okay, question number 1. When you create a custom healing abutment in-house, do you create them like ready-made products, considering each teeth size? And where do you get the screw from? Because the screw must fit into the implant body, right?
Yeah, correct. So basically, you would be using your prosthetic screw, which of course any implant system will have. It would be, whatever implant system you use, I'm sure you'll have some sort of prosthetic screw. So it will be no different to that. That's basically the screw that you use. I have them basically pre-made. I actually make them in whole batches, and then on the day, I will basically choose the one that I feel is the best fits, and then I'll use that specific one. So yeah, I actually pre-make them in advance rather than make them on the day. And then on the day, I get to choose which one that I feel is the closest size that I want it to be.
So maybe it's like anterior, posterior, molar.
Yeah, and so I mean, depending on the software that you use, if you use a program like Anatomic Profile Generator, which you can get for free online, they come in all shapes and sizes, and for posterior teeth, anterior teeth, and of course, because this is 3D printed resin, essentially, if you need to adjust or add, remove material to these printed collars or abutments, then you can do that with your standard flowable composite. They will bond to these printed healing abutments. So that's the magic, I guess, of having them all pre-made, rather than in the traditional sense, you would have a temporary cylinder, you'd isolate it with some sort of rubber dam flow composite resin, and then carefully take everything out without disrupting any graft material, and then polish it. Whereas if you have something pre-made, most of the work is already done. You just need to shape it to how you want it to be.
But sometimes you shape them, right, with a burr.
Yeah. Absolutely. Very easy to do it.
Yeah. I just wonder, what about the connection part? Is it okay to make it in-house?
Okay, so you can have two ways of doing it. You could either have it designed direct to the fixture or direct to the implant. But I guess for some users that can be quite risky, because when you're printing, that connection area, it's very thin in some areas, and when you screw down the healing collar, you can fracture basically. It's probably safer to base off your healing collar off a temporary cylinder. So you basically cement the collar onto a temporary cylinder. That's probably a lot safer because your temporary cylinder is usually some sort of PEEK material or some sort of metal as well. So that's not going to break, or it's very hard for it to break. So that's what I would do, rather than actually having the whole thing printed.
Okay, thank you for answering that.
Yep.
Okay, next question. Question number 2. Isn't there going to be any irritation to the gingiva when 3D printed custom healing abutment is directly connected to the transition zone area? Because we use the healing abutment at least for a month or more.
Yep. I mean, that's a really, really good question. And actually, my opinion is that you should definitely have that, any printed resin. Obviously, you should follow some sort of validated workflow. You don't just, chuck in any sort of resin, cure it in any sort of curing unit, and then expect that there won't be any inflammation. There will be inflammation. So you really should be following your manufacturer's instructions. If the manufacturer specifies a specific curing unit or curing units to fully process that particular resin, then you should be using one of those curing units. You shouldn't be using something off eBay or Amazon, for instance. So I think where you really need to just follow steps to make sure that you have the most biocompatible product at the end of the day. I think so. If providing you are following some sort of validated or approved workflow, then the next step really is to polish these healing collars. They should be polished. You'll be using composite polishers, anything that you would use to polish composite resin, and then they can actually be polished to a very nice shine. So once they're polished, then it's actually quite fine. I don't experience any significant inflammation or irritation in these healing sites. No. Just like when in the analog or traditional method, we would have a temporary cylinder, and you'd actually flow or mold composite, packable composite onto that particular temporary cylinder. Now that is still resin. We're still comfortable using it, except now instead of using packing it in an analog fashion, we're actually printing it in advance. And then putting it in the mouth, and you actually get better rate of cure in one of these approved dental curing units than actually if you cure it in the mouth with your handheld light unit. So I actually feel that as long as you're following an approved workflow and you're polishing these printed composites very well, then actually there's no reason why you can't get a nice result.
I just wonder, is it okay to apply customized healing abutment in one-stage surgery, like after implant placement, directly connect the custom healing abutment? Is it okay?
Well, I mean, I have personally done it myself. The implant system that I use is quite unique. It's called the Trimatrix system. So actually the connection is designed that I can actually screw in a printed or milled restoration directly onto the fixture. So, I've definitely, for a number of times, actually placed printed immediate provisional restorations direct to the fixture, as long as they're polished and radio opaque, so you can see them on an X-ray. Then, in my opinion, I think it's fine.
You think polishing is really important?
Yeah, absolutely. It's critical. It's critical.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, question number 3. What do you think is the most ROI 3D printing work in your daily practice? If you're telling to the beginners who are considering buying a new 3D printer.
I think the biggest ROI has got to be splints, easily. I think for just general practices, certainly in Western countries, the lab fee for occlusal splints is quite high because the cost of labor is quite high. Whereas you could design a splint for free. Of course, I use the Medit Splints app all the time because it's so easy to use, and of course, it's free to use as well. And then your material costs for a splint is, very, very affordable. Like you're probably spending anywhere from, $5 to $15 material cost per splint. And then, as I said, the cost to design a splint on Medit is free. So when you compare that to, if you send it off to a lab and have it made, then the price difference is huge. So yeah, I think the easiest way to get immediate ROI from a 3D printer is actually splints. The other way of getting good return on investments is actually doing in-house clear aligner therapy, where you're basically printing models, you're thermoforming clear aligners on top of them. So kind of like Invisalign, but you're just doing everything in-house essentially. That is also another way of getting really good, return on investment from your particular setup.
Then how many dental lab technicians are there in your clinic?
None. No, I do actually most of the printing, but I do delegate a lot of the tasks like cutting of the aligners, polishing of crowns. Some of the small tasks I still delegate to my supporting staff. But because I entered, I guess 3D printing as a hobby, I still enjoy it. I still 3D print not just dental things, but things for all sorts of things, not dentally related. So I still enjoy it. But certainly, most practices should be trying to teach their support staff, their assistants, how to do some of the smaller things like polishing crowns and cutting aligners and making mouth guards and all of that.
So all the work is done by yourself. Wow.
I would say a big portion of it, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
including the design. Yeah, I enjoy it, yeah.
Including the design.
Yeah.
Logical guide as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow. You must be really busy.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah. Yeah.
Because one of the dentists who I know, he also does the designing at his clinic, and he's like going at home late night because he has to design the surgical guide and everything.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it really depends on, how many cases you take on and what type of cases. And my rule essentially is that if I can't do it in 15 minutes, then I will generally get someone else to design it for me. So I do actually make quite a lot of use of design services. I'm a big proponent of design services, but sometimes it is quite tricky to find the right one. But yeah, my rule is that if I can't do it within 15 minutes, then I'm sending it off to someone else to design. Yeah.
I think that's a clever idea. Wow.
Mm.
And what about, have you ever used the AI function in Splints?
I have used the AI function in Splints, but that being it's not too bad. That being said, it's so easy to design splints on the Medit Splints app, just step by step doing it, that I feel that you just have more control, more security just designing it yourself. I mean, it's a nice tool to have, but I think the step-by-step process is actually not that slow. You can still design a splint from start to finish well within 5 minutes. So yeah, it's very easy. Very easy, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we are at the last question. Question number 4. What is your opinion on using cheaper customer level printers compared to the more expensive dental 3D printers?
I think we have to be, realistic and practical when answering this question. Ultimately, it depends on where you are in the world. Some countries, like in Australia, we're quite strict on the hardware that we can use. I think other countries like Canada would also be quite strict as well. Whereas there will be other countries where it's quite relaxed. You can more or less use whatever you want, whenever you want, and get away with it. But my opinion is that if you're putting anything in the mouth, certainly for more, long periods of time, then you should really be following strict, approved and, approved workflows that we know work. And usually these manufacturers have spent a lot of time developing these resins and a lot of time developing their hardware. And then, when let's say you use, their hardware and their resins, that for sure that if you follow the steps, according to their instructions, you're going to get a good result. Sometimes if you use a little bit of this, a little bit of that, kind of mix and match, workflows and steps from different companies, you can potentially get failures, and then you don't even know where something has gone wrong. So my opinion is that if you have the budget and you really want to do things the right way, then absolutely, I'm a big proponent of these dental specific hardware setups. Like Sprint Ray, Accurata, there's a lot, Sega, there's a lot of companies out there. Whereas if you, just want to, play a little bit, dip your toes in the water a little bit, then of course you can start with a cheaper setup. But my opinion is that sometimes you end up, having a poorer experience of dental 3D printing that will put you off some of these more easier and more dental specific, hardware options. So you've got to be a bit careful. Ultimately, you want to have a system which is fun to use and easy to use, because if it isn't, then you're not going to use it. And often that means that you have to spend a bit more, at least at the start, to have a proper setup. So yeah, it depends on a lot of things. When I first started, I was using your Frozens, your Anycubics, your consumer grade 3D printers. But nowadays, if you ask me, yeah, I would never go back and do that again. I just
Yeah.
go straight to the dental specific 3D printers.
Yeah.
But I guess in a way, because I had that experience, from the start, I knew kind of like what I was getting into, and then actually these dental 3D printers sometimes I feel they sometimes spoil us a bit. They make things a bit too easy compared to the consumer level 3D printers. But yeah, it really depends on your budget, how much you want to spend, and also how easy you want your workflow to be. But if you have the budget, yeah, I'd go for something more expensive.
Okay, thank you for answering all the questions.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, that's all about it for today. So you'll be able to watch this webinar on our YouTube channel and Medit Academy. Thank you for being here, Dr. Andrew.
No problem. No problem.
Hope to see you next
Yeah.
time. Bye.
Bye.